The 2019 Game Developers Conference will feature an exhibition called Alt.Ctrl.GDC that use alternative control schemes and interactions. Gamasutra will be talking to the developers of each of the games that have been selected for the showcase. Roambot will have players moving a robot's body around so that they can explore its dreams, shifting its antennae, head, hands, and legs to meander its flipping visions. Jack Ford, designer of Roambot, spoke with Gamasutra about turning a full-sized robot into a controller. The feelings of empathy that can come from controlling another person's body within digital worlds, and how a unique controller can change the perception of what is possible with games. My name is Jack Ford, and I am the sole designer for Roambot. I graduated with a degree in film from the University of Texas at Austin last May, but many of the classes I took for my major were actually game dev focused. My interest in game storytelling and narrative design took me to GD 2017. After a Twine game, Arrow got me an invite to Telltale's creative workshop that year. Since then, I have been working on personal creative projects and building my portfolio in the hopes of working in games professionally. Roambot was my biggest project so far. Roambot is a game about exploring the dreams of a sleeping robot, and the controller is the robot itself. His dream world is displayed on a nearby TV, which you turn into by tilting his antennae left and right. Physically tilting and rotating the robot's head changes the first-person view within the dream, and reclining his legs up moves you forward. You can also interact with objects in the dream world by closing the robot's claw hands. The game itself was created in Unreal Engine 4 and coded using blueprints. The in-game assets were made using a combination of Blender, Inkscape, and GIMP. I also used Steam's controller configuration settings to map the gyroscope in a DualShock 4 to the MOUSELOOK, which is how the head tilting control works. There are two main components to the physical Roambot: the robot, whom I call Romeo, and his chair. Romeo is made primarily of cardboard boxes painted silver, and his arms are one long plastic ducting tube. His claw hands are just some $long reach grabbers, to which I have added metal contacts on the end connected to a speaker wire so that closing the claw completes a circuit. The circuit is connected to the PC via a Makey Makey United States B module. The claw registers as the use key, and the reclining leg rest registers as the forward key. The prototype I initially submitted to Alt.Ctrl.GDC setting a wooden folding chair. For the final version, it was important to me that the chair looked like an actual load recliner to better communicate the story of my game. So I built a new chair out of PVC and a fabric foam cover, so it could be disassembled for transit. When I started on this project, I did not know what kind of game I wanted to make, and I had no experience with electrical engineering and the like. So, I decided to begin by brainstorming creative ways to implement pre-existing tech that I already knew how to use. At some point, I remembered Steam could be used to remap the inputs on the DualShock 4, including the gyroscope, and since the games I like to develop and play most are usually first-person, it seemed like a natural fit to connect the MOUSELOOK to the two controls. From there, it was just a matter of coming up with a narrative scenario that fit this control scheme, and rotating a physical head to rotate an in-game view seemed like it could be the beginning of a fun experience. The character became a robot once I realized the joysticks could act as antennae. Also, I just like robots. The way we interact with games is always in some level of abstraction. I think that by essentially using a life-size dummy as the controller, you eliminate several layers of abstraction and get closer to the one-to-one relationship between interaction and what happens on screen. It's kinda like VR, except you are further removed from the game world. Many of my favorite games are focused on exploration and investigation, immersive sims, walking simulators, and role-playing games. I love how these games can have such a strong sense of atmosphere and communicate their narratives through the environment, and that's something I wanted to emulate in Roambot Movement. Sight and touch are the essential interactions for these games, so I made sure my controller had an input for each. Honestly, once I had the basic idea for the controller's design, assembling it was not all that complicated, and there was not much physical troubleshooting to be done. The more difficult part came on the coding end, since that's what I have the least experience with. The robot's antennae are attached to the DualShock's joysticks, and the game generates a random x-axis value for each stick, so that the closer the antenna is to that position, the clearer the static on screen becomes. It was a challenge figuring out the math and implementing it, but once I cleared that hurdle, everything else was pretty smooth going. The only other technical challenge was figuring out how to allow players to turn all the way around if they need to without making the head twist backwards. I solved this by adding some mouse acceleration to the game, so the faster the head is rotated, the further the in-game view rotates. Narratively speaking, the players are not even the ones experiencing the game world the robot is, whereas in most games the main character is a standing avatar for the player. In Roambot, the control scheme makes it clear that the players and the protagonist are separate entities. Because of this, I hope players come to process what's happening in the game through a lens of empathy and understanding, that they are peering into someone else's personal experience, even if that someone is a robot. I have also always been fascinated with the idea of the mind being represented as a place, like a labyrinth of hallways and rooms containing the different thoughts, memories, and dreams of a person. It seemed like a fun challenge to imagine what that mindscape would look like for a robot. I think an experience is then reached when you share it collaboratively with another person. A Roambot is a game that would probably be single player if played with a traditional controller, but because the robot controller is large enough that it requires two people to operate, the players are forced to cooperate and discuss what they are seeing. The hope is that both players get more out of the experience by having to put words to their intentions, leading them to experience the game from more than one perspective. The vast majority of games are made to fit one or two pre-existing control schemes. The standard gamepad and mouse keyboard are touchscreen and tilt controls, are occasionally some combination thereof. I think it's important for people who make games really, all artists and creatives, to expand their horizons and stretch their design abilities by trying things that have never been tried before. The games and interactive experiences that excite me the most are the ones that have a unique new approach, which is why I love Alt.Ctrl.GDC, reversing the typical game dev process by designing the controller first and making a game to fit it, rather than designing games for the controllers we already have. It's a great way to shake things up and come to new ideas we might never have otherwise discovered. The Gamasutra Job board is the most diverse, active and established board of its kind for the video game industry. Here is just one of them many. Many positions being advertised right now. Location: Redmond, Washington. Description of duties. Summary of requirements. We are an equal opportunity employer of individuals with disabilities and protected veterans, valuing diversity, celebrating strengths. Interested? Apply now. Whether you are just starting out, looking for something new, or just seeing what's out there, the Gamasutra Job Board is the place where game developers move ahead in their careers. Gamasutra's Job Board is the most diverse, most active, and most established board of its kind in the video game industry, serving companies of all sizes, from indie to AAA. Looking for a new job? Get started here. Are you a recruiter looking for talent? Post jobs here. Epic Games is facing another lawsuit over its game Fortnite, though this latest case has little to do with Battle Royale, or dance moves. A Californian man has filed a legal complaint against the game developer on behalf of his son, alleging that the loot boxes, llamas, in the Fortnite Save the World flavor of the game exploits children. Llamas show as a potential job priority. As of January 20th, 90 update to the game,